Good afternoon and good morning, good evening. Welcome to episode 14 of the Stranded live stream. If you've been following us earlier, you know that we've tried various different formats, and today I'm really excited to share part of my passion, which is biking, riding bicycles, and talk to Dom Mason under the heading Meet the Maker. Dom has founded his own company called Mason Cycles, and we'll hear all about that shortly. So I can't wait to hear and see what your reactions are, because we're kind of off topic if we consider this a guitar live stream. But it's not. I do want this to be more than that, reach into creativity overall. And like today, but also running a business, interacting with interesting people. So without further ado, I'll switch over to Dom and hope for technology to work out. Dom.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good, thank you. It's very hot in England, in our little barn.
It is here also. It's really we're hitting over 30 degrees here in Uppsala, which is very unusual.
Yeah. I think it's similar here. Hottest day so far.
Yeah, it's insane. But I think just icebreaker wise,
Yeah,
obviously crazy times. I think you're back operating after being just completely locked down for a good time.
yeah, yeah. Well, we make all our products in Italy. So at the start of the lockdown, I was thinking, okay, thank God that Italy's not hit, and it was all starting in China and apparently spreading to Taiwan. There's a lot of bike industry in Taiwan, and so I was thinking, okay, this is good. And then almost instantly, the whole, that whole area across the top of Italy, it kind of looked red on the COVID maps. It's where we make all our frames, and so it just started going down, and they were down for 50 days, and it was pretty scary to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And of course, then the UK lockdown.
Yeah. So the Italian guys went down. Some went down sooner than others because some of them actually their workers caught the virus, and then the UK pretty quickly went onto lockdown, and here we've only got a very small staff. We've got only 5 or 6 people, and we were pretty quickly down to me at home and just one guy here. And I was thinking, I wonder if it was kind of felt like starting again, like when I was at home starting the company. I was thinking, am I going to have to start again and run this thing on my own and pack boxes and build bikes and start again? It actually, it really felt like that because, nobody knew.
Yeah. And now, I guess business is booming, if you will. It seems a lot of people are taking to biking in these quarantine times and social distancing and staying away from public transportation, etc. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's great. And just like a few weeks in, I was speaking to my friends who also have various bike businesses, and we were saying, oh God, let's have a little support group, so maybe we can help each other get through this thing with ideas, and set up a WhatsApp group. And we were chatting, and it was kind of, people were much the same as me. They were worried, like everyone was worried.
Yeah.
And And then 2 or 3 weeks in, I read this article and it said, oh, it was an American lady had written an article, a website, and it said something like that this could be good for the bike industry. And up until then, I guess I was kind of just focused on keeping things running. And I actually hadn't thought maybe people would have to turn back to bikes.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really on my radar. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to take too much notice of this because I don't want to, get carried away. But then slowly it did become apparent that people were using bikes again and being encouraged to use bikes, and they were going out with their family on bikes and introducing their children to bikes because bikes were allowed. They were allowed to go out on them, and very quickly people were having to buy a bike for their children, or they were having to buy a bike if they were still going to work. But I thought, this is going to be entry level kids' bikes, mountain bikes, and maybe we'll fill the fringes of it.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, in the last few weeks, we've been really busy, and now I've had to get some part timers in.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I
Yeah.
mean, we're noticing the same. I think our type of products, guitars, obviously, is in high demand because they're spending more time at home. They need to find a creative outlet. They have more energy, perhaps, than they had before. Certainly, people working from home have had, and not having to commute, for example. They'll have spare hours in every day.
Yeah, but because the thing with the guitar, I mean, I've tried to learn the guitar probably 2 or 3 times and failed because it's
Yeah,
time. Time is so important, and you need that extended time if you're going to get anything good out of it.
yeah,
And so yeah, that's interesting to hear. And I think that, like with the bicycle, people have got the time, but also, you kind of it's stressed a lot of people, and they've been thrown out of their routine, and to be able to just lose yourself in a guitar, or going for a bicycle ride, having some sort of purpose, it's become really important for people.
yeah.
And that sort of flow thing, which is very hard to achieve in crazy modern life, maybe people have started to come back into contact with that again. And also, they haven't been able to go on holiday. They've saved the money from that. They've maybe saved the money from their crazy expensive season ticket on the train, and they think, I've always wanted that Strandberg.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to buy it, and I've got the
Yeah.
time to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, someone told me that it's actually been research on the fact that in a crisis, people don't necessarily stop consuming, but they consume more consciously, or they take much more care in what they consume, and people spend a lot of time researching before they make their purchase, and then they really commit to it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think we're certainly noticing that in the communication that we have with our customers, that the nature of the questions are slightly different than before, and people do seem to make a more informed decision, and they make sure that whatever they purchase is something they'll be able to enjoy for a long time. Is that something you're also noticing?
yeah, yeah. We definitely are. I mean, we speak to customers a lot, before they make the purchase, because it's a big investment, and the same as your guitar, it's a proper investment. It's not normally just I think I'm going to buy that bicycle type of thing, because
Yeah.
that they're not supposed to be entry level or cheap bikes, and also there's a certain real joy in finding out a lot about that product, and really knowing the details and speaking to people and making a connection before you buy that product, and then you're already feeling like you're part of that world, and by the time you get around to purchasing it, the whole thing just feels like a more special purchase, I suppose. And plus, like you say, they really want to get the right thing. They don't want to make a mistake, spend the money wrong. You have to try and move
Yeah,
it on.
how do you like overcome the fact that a bike has to be ridden in order to really know if it's good? Because that's a very it's a big similarity, I think, between
Yeah,
a guitar and a bike. That there's well, I guess in the bike industry, there's more objectively a good bike and bad bike, but it is very, very subjective still what works for you. And when you're at the level that you're considering a mason, you probably know what you're after. And I mean, I came and tried my bike
yeah,
at your premises, but
do it well.
how many can do that?
Well, the percentage of people that can come and try them here is small. But we
Yeah.
do during lockdown. We had no one, but now we're getting people back, and sometimes, before lockdown, we'd have 2 or 3 people at maybe 3 or 4 days a week, 2 or 3 people coming to try the bike, because it's beautiful around here to ride, and so they'll come. They will come from abroad to try the bike, because they're really serious about it. Like you say, they've been looking at it for months. Finally made the decision, and they want to ride it, and they might want to try the different ones and see how they vary in the sizing. And that's a whole thing as well. Obviously, we do 6 or 8 different sizes, and the person has to fit that product. And I guess with guitars, that's I mean, they are, like, especially with your guitar, it's an ergonomic device, but they're not necessarily sized for different. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess they are, but not. You don't maybe have 6 or 8 different sizes to fit people.
No.
So, it is important they ride them, and they do come here and ride them, and it's the best way to do it. But if they can't, and we sell bicycles, we've sold bicycles to every country in the world now, and we just spend a lot of time advising them on sizing and asking for a lot of information. And it's really about communication and giving them confidence that we can put them on the right size machine. And we don't get it wrong, especially if they can give us some information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you essentially do custom bikes. You have set spec models, but do customers ever buy exactly what's listed in that standard spec, or do they adapt something?
Well, it's a good question, because when I first started, I'd listened to a friend of mine. Once again, he had he was a designer for a bicycle company, and his thing was like, make it simple, because the more complication you build in, it sounds nice, because you think, right, I'm going to give every possible combination and variation and customization to these products, and God, that's going to be brilliant, because people will just be able to get whatever they want. But then actually, when people go on the site, the last thing you want them to be is confused and intimidated. And I can think of websites that are like that. And the music industry is kind of like that. They say when you go into a guitar shop or a hi-fi shop, it's kind of like, I'm a bit scared. So you don't want that feeling when you go on the website. You want to feel like, okay, now that looks like what I need for my type of riding. It's got those variations. I'm going to get that one. It seems kind of obvious. So we started like that because I just didn't want to overcomplicate it for people, and also for us, because if we have 6 sizes, 3 colors, 4 or 5 group set options, it's massive already. It's 300 or 400, variations. So yeah, we started simple. Then one customer, I think you can see Cal in the background. One customer said to him, "Can you do a single speed one?" And I was like, oh no, we don't really do that. And he said, oh, well, I'd like to have a go, because he was interested in seeing what we could do. And he spec'd this really nice single speed bicycle for a customer. And it was like, okay, well, that worked quite well. Let's just let them have more tire options and then more group set options. And now we've become known for giving people a lot of options, and you can configure it on the website, and it works really well. But it's complicated. It's complicated, and so we have to spend a lot of time talking to people and making sure they understand all the variations. Because even if you know about bicycles and you've ridden bicycles for a long time, you don't necessarily know about this new type of emerging bicycle. What tire should I get? What should my helmet have a peak, or should it not have a peak? Or what shorts should I wear? Should I wear? It's like if something's new, and I called it Mason progressive cycles because I'm not into retro and all that kind of stuff at all. And so if you're trying to be progressive and you're trying to be at the forefront of things as much as you can, then you need to communicate with people a lot, because they may be confused by what you're doing. And I guess for Strandberg, that was a real thing for you, wasn't it, when you started?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, it was full custom. So a dialogue one-on-one with a customer, usually more experienced than myself, and we would talk about how to meet those exact requirements exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I back then it was just a hobby for me, and then I realized that I'm never going to be able to scale this business this way. It's too intense for me as
like
the
a custom frame builder,
Yeah, and being the sole proprietor, you have to manage not only the communication with your current customer, but you have to manage the communication with every previous customer that you've shipped to earlier.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I mean, there was no time left in the workshop, because all I was doing was communicating or sourcing parts with suppliers. So I quickly realized I have to scale this, and we started Custom Shop, which it's not entirely unlike what you're doing, except we'd have to source like each body to be built, or all the constituent parts built for each individual guitar. And then we also offered options, but then it's you have to keep all these parts in stock, and you order parts and they're not delivered on time, et cetera, et cetera. So that all that communication suddenly starts mushrooming, and just kept growing and growing. And we were also noticing that the specs, they were like converging into more and more similar specs. So ultimately, we just said, look, because then, backtrack a little bit. So I also knew that to really build a business, we had to get like regular mass production going. So there would be these 3 tracks running concurrently. One, which was one-on-one with me, full custom shop, which was within a set number of options, configure your guitar, and then pure off the shelf. And
okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
we
Can
we just came to the point that the work for me, because I mean it was still basically like a one-man show, and I did get help pretty early though, but in terms of communicating with customers, it was still me. And I just found that communicating with a single customer was about as much work as communicating with the manufacturer about an entire model lineup. And at the end, it was just I couldn't prioritize between the two without feeling bad, and just had to make the hard decision to close down the custom shop because it was too labor intensive.
but it was a great way to start because you get known for that amazing product. But what about when I know with custom bicycles, which means when we talk about custom bicycles, it means that there's one guy in a workshop and he's hand mitering, shaping all the tubes,
Yeah.
and brazing them together himself. One guy, so he'll get the measurements from customer and work with that customer until he says this is the right shape bicycle for you, and then he'll make it himself. And then if they want to scale that, it's really difficult. So they're either working flat out and making no money, or they scale it. But then the customer says, "Oh well, I want you to make it. I don't want these other guys who
Yeah.
you told me they're really good, and I can see that they really are good, but I want you to make it." So how many people said, "I want an Ola guitar. I don't want a Strandberg. I want an Ola."
Yeah.
Can you? Did it happen, or did it not really make a difference?
It was kind of. I mean, there was a transition between me doing everything myself and like outsourcing it.
Yeah.
But I don't think people are necessarily conscious of that happening, and it's not that I was hiding it, but I kind of just let it happen until the point where it was just sorry, there's no Ola anymore in the workshop.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did have that conversation with a few people, and just had to say, look at the end result, and you won't be disappointed. So, but at the same time, I mean, you're still fronting for the results that other people are producing. So it's certainly tough when mistakes happen, because they do. Then
Yeah.
you have to own up to it, even if it wasn't like your actual fault.
Yeah.
but I mean, just to backtrack a little bit, how did you get into this? Were you ever that guy that built the frame?
Um, well, no, I was never the guy custom making frames for people, because I just knew that well, people could make frames a lot better than I can, and I could probably knock up a frame. But my thing is, well, my background is engineering, and actually, I trained as an agricultural engineer, which kind of seems very different to bicycles. Well, it is very different to bicycles. So I trained as an agricultural engineer, and then I taught engineering, and I taught like at a pure level, but to agricultural engineering students. So welding and fabrication and design and hydraulics and pneumatics and materials and things like that. So that actually gave me a very good grounding into what, like a bicycle frame. It's just a structure, and it has to work right in the right way, and you have to use the correct materials, and you have to join them in the right way. And so it actually gave me a pretty good, unexpectedly, a pretty good grounding into how to make a bicycle frame.
Yeah.
And when when I go out to makers or go out to Italy, and they would say, "Oh, this is how we're going to weld this part," I would go, "Well, no, because that's not right, and I don't want it like that." So that gave me a good confidence into how to do things. But the bicycle thing, we were just always into bicycles as kids, and that's where it started from. And, when the 10-speed drop bar racer thing became the craze in the 70s, I suppose, we had those, and then we wanted to ride in forests. We didn't want to ride on the road, and we didn't want to be Tour de France guys. We wanted to be scrambler guys, So we would just modify our bikes and change the wheels and put big cow horn bars on and all that kind of thing. And so that was just our thing, just basically stripping down bikes and making bikes the whole time. And then when the big mountain bike boom came in, you could basically only get a Ridgeback or a Muddy Fox, and they came in from America, and we could never get one of those. We couldn't afford one of those, and so we tried to make our own, and just destroyed bikes. And then I remember I got a Ridgeback. I got a Ridgeback that was huge. It was from my girlfriend's brother. It was massive. So I thought, and I rode it. But then I thought, this is just, it couldn't work. So I ended up cutting it apart and reshaping all the tubes and re-welding and brazing the back end in, and making it look like another bike called a Kona. It was a very iconic bike at that time, and and it worked. And I thought, okay, it kind of dispelled that sort of I don't know, mythical thing that you couldn't do something like that. And so, and ever since then, I've just been into bikes and riding.
Yeah, it's fascinating because your story is very much the same as mine. Just a background in general engineering and the realization that guitar is just a mechanical construction that you have to get it right, but it's not voodoo or magic. It's some kind of sound engineering project to get into.
Yeah.
But then, you had a long background with kinesis.
That's right.
For many years. What was that like? Your first real work in the industry, or
yeah. Well, exactly. I was teaching. I was teaching engineering, and my brother started a bike company, which is DMR bikes, and they were doing BMXs, and then they did jump bikes, dirt jump bikes, and then Kinesis, who they're a huge manufacturer in Taiwan and some manufacturing in China, and they'd seen a bike company called Giant, which started as a frame manufacturer for other people, put their own label on the bicycle and call it Giant, and go out there and sell bicycles, and became Giant, which is, I'm not sure, but they were one of the biggest bicycle companies in the world. And so Kinesis thought, we can do that. Why don't we just put that name on the bicycle, have a Kinesis Germany, Kinesis UK, Kinesis France, Kinesis Sweden, whatever, and start selling our bicycles and be like Giant. And so in 1999, I think it was, my brother was offered that. He was offered Kinesis UK because they were already selling bikes and they had some contacts. And so they were too busy. And my brother said to me, do you want to do it? And I went, okay, I've kind of had enough of teaching. It's too much box ticking. Let's give it a go. And so I gave up my teaching, lost 9 weeks a year holiday, which was painful. And then, but there was only 5 carbon forks or something, no frames. And so we started trying to sell carbon forks. It was all right. And I thought, right, well, what we need to do is let's design a frame and sell it with a fork. So you can buy this thing, which you can build your own bike, or we can sell it to a bicycle shop. And so I designed a road frame. It wasn't very good, I don't think, but it worked, and I learned something from it. And once again, it was like, it kind of showed that you could do it, and people liked it, and it started to sell the forks, and that was basically what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, okay, well, let's design a mountain bike frame, and let's use really good tubing, because Kinesis was great at welding and they had access to brilliant tubing. But let's not make it, because at that time mountain bike frames with good tubing were really expensive, and so we thought, let's make a really good mountain bike frame with Eastern tubing, and sell it to bike shops and see what happens. And so I did that, and it was a real success. And so it was, and actually it was a pretty good. That one was actually good, and and they still sell the sort of derivative of that now, and then I just kept having more ideas, or someone would have an idea for a bicycle frame, and they'd say, "Why don't you try this?" And then I would look at it in my kind of naive way, because I was just really a mountain biker, and if I was doing a road frame, I would think, well, why isn't it like this? Because I didn't. When I look back at it, I kind of realised I didn't have any reverence for the big boys, like, I don't know, Colnago or Pinarello or something like that. I just thought, well, surely we could do it like this, and why do they do it like that? And let's just do it like this. And it kind of worked. And then I did a few, like, the next model, and used my naivety, but grip of engineering and kind of love of riding to just make them how I thought they should be. I don't know if you have. This is probably going way off the guitar thing, so people are scratching their heads. But cyclocross. Would you have that? I suppose is it pretty big?
It's not a huge sport here. It exists in Sweden, but
yeah. So it's kind of riding what look like road bikes around the field for 45 minutes in the winter. It's an
awful sport.
It is a fact, and someone said, "Oh, could you do a cyclocross frame?" And I thought, well, let's have a look at this thing. This looks mad. I was kind of intrigued by it because I kind of like things which are a bit, mad, I suppose, and a bit left field maybe. And I thought, well, why are they riding these really old-fashioned looking bikes with no mud clearance and skinny tires and really bad brakes? They just don't seem suitable. And it was because it had come from this, you have to be riding a kind of unsuitable road bike around a field and suffering. So I kind of did it like a mountain bike, and I made it light, fat tubes and big clearances, and just because I wasn't worried about all that, I don't know, history, I suppose, too much. I just wanted it to work really well.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of 10 years later, someone said to me, "Oh, I remember when those cross-light bikes came out." It was just like, oh, everyone was like, "Wow, these are great." This just kind of changed the way we were doing cyclocross. But I was kind of unaware of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I suppose I kind of continue to this day.
Yeah. And what was that? What kind of made you leave kinesis and form Mason, just to be able to like go further in that direction, or was there a big vision like behind it?
There was. I wouldn't say there was a big vision. There was. I was kind of frustrated with a few of the things that I was there building it up from 5 forks to however many frames. I don't know what it was, bicycles, 20 or something. I was there for 15 years, and I guess because I was so passionate about finishing one thing, letting it into the world, seeing how people reacted to it, watching what they were doing on it, and then thinking, okay, let's do this one now. And I was drawn from project to project to project. I kind of kidded myself that it was my bicycle company, but it wasn't my bicycle company. And so that was kind of one thing. And the other thing was that because I really love making things, and I'm at heart I'm an engineer and someone that likes to pick up tools and get my hands dirty. It was kind of it's difficult to go and chat with a guy in Taiwan who's making your frames, and they were great bikes, and you would send the CAD drawings off, and the bicycle would come back, and they were great. They did their job. But for me, I really wanted to go and actually hold the tubes and know the guy that was welding the frame, and watch them doing it and suggest changes and kind of be there, not so divorced from the whole process.
Mm.
So that's one thing. And also I was really fascinated with these really small Italian workshops who were producing super high quality work. And they were the hub of the cycling world before the Taiwanese came along.
Mm-hmm.
And they just, they lost out for various reasons.
Yeah.
But it's all still there. Skills are all still there. And so there was something really fascinating for me to produce a really modern, forward-thinking product with the most modern components and technology, if you like, but made by these really traditional guys. It's kind of a tantalizing mix, and I thought it could be really good. And the tubing is fantastic. So that was my kind of vision, if you like. And loads of things came together, and I remember sitting down drawing, I think what you call a mind map, maybe, which was just like this is my bike company, and these are all the things that are pointing to my bike company that are, at the moment, are converging, that could make it work. And these are all the contacts I've got. And oh God, there's this type of tire and this type of braking system and this type of transmission, and wow, if I could put them together with an Italian-made frame, super high quality, that could be really good.
Yeah, but were you able to like soft start this in parallel to what you were doing at Kinesis, or did you have to like make a clean cut, save up some money to get started, make a clean cut, and start?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. It was just because, for one thing, all my time at Kinesis was just devoted to it. It was just, I was just, and it wasn't something I was going to do while I was there, and also, I said, oh, could I maybe do Kinesis part time, and do you want me part time, and then I can do my own thing and start this up. But you know very well, if you try and do that, maybe the stakes aren't high enough.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you're only going to do 2 half-assed jobs. And so you've either got to say, right, this is me and this is what I'm going to do now, and it's going to be everything that I do. I'm going to devote myself to it, or I'm not going to really do it, because it's going to be hard. And actually getting those romantic ideas of the Italians, just I would go along and show them my designs, and they would get on with it. Because they've been there doing that thing that way for a very long time, they're not particularly open to me, Don Mason, coming along and saying, I want to do it this way. I want to put the tubes in through the cables and hoses in through the tubes of the frame. And I want it to be able to change at the end what you can do. And you could see them going, no. And it took a long time for me to want to do that. They must get a lot of people wasting their time,
Yeah.
So it was hard. And the culture, when you're working with Taiwan, they want to please you, and they're efficient, and they're brilliant communicators, which is why Italy went down and why Taiwan went up, because they were reluctant maybe to communicate, and the Taiwanese were hungry to build their industry. And it was sad, it was sad to see that happen.
Yeah.
So it took me, well, I'm still learning now, but I would say it took me at least 18 months to get my ideas across and get it started.
But you did draw up this mind map, the plan, and said, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the plunge, and went for it.
Yeah, I did. And also, the things that happened, my dad died. I thought, am I am I going to be looking back in, or when I'm, looking back when I'm 83, thinking, oh, everything was right then, but I didn't do it because I was like, a bit scared about it, and what if it goes wrong?
Mhm.
So that was a, that was a major like turning point, I guess, event, and so I used the inheritance, a little bit of inheritance I got from my
Mm.
dad to start the bike company, and my wife said, "Oh, there goes the kitchen." Still haven't done the kitchen, and that was 6 years ago. But yeah, so there were some major sort of things happening in my life which made me think I've just got to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And what I also think is cool that, I mean, I think you kind of started it and fearlessly just went off and now I'm gonna design my logo. I'm gonna decide what the website looks like.
Yeah,
I'm gonna like get help where I need to, but you went into it solo, if you will, and
yeah,
I think we there's a huge difference in how we got started, because for me it was this idea that people just caught on to, and they've been, I guess the customers have kind of been dragging Strandberg after them all this time. We've
right, yeah,
we've never been ahead of the curve.
yeah,
So I could literally wait for demand to build up and take very little risk
right,
in doing this. But it's still I've participated in a lot of like business incubator things and entrepreneurial activities, and kind of what they tell you is, oh, you got to attract this investment and this capital, and then you need to hire all these people and build this company, and then you can start to do what you want to do.
yeah,
But I think we both like proved we've grown organically and proved that there's demand
yeah,
for whatever it is that we're doing.
yeah. Well, there's, that way you talked about. I I guess that's been the way, since the 80s. Get capital, get people, have a massive advertising campaign,
Yeah.
put brand out there, and then people will be hungry for the product and they're going to buy it, and then you can spend 11 years topping up the bank again for all the money you spent. So I think for me, I never wanted to do that, and I read quite a lot, and there's the Patagonia story I found really fascinating, and he started, like you started, I guess, like maybe like I started by making products that he thought, well, this is what people need, and got a name for himself, and then people would come to him for those products, and
Hmm.
it's slower, but if you can make it work, and like you say, the, the customers drag you forward. Um, it's 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 got to be a better way, because I think the kind of thing of plowing loads of money into a brand and pushing it and promoting it, it feels like it's built on sand. It feels like it's a sugar rush almost. Like when that's gone, it goes. You kind of smash it into reality like this, but as soon as the sugar rush is gone, maybe it's just going to go down as fast.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
for me, I really wanted to. We just started with 2 models, and I just really wanted to make those as good as I could. And then I wanted to build the brand on something solid, you know, on a reputation, and on people saying to their friends, "Oh, actually, yeah, this is actually quite a good bike," and the word spreading like that. And it was going to be slow, and it it may not work, but looking back at it, it was the way to do it, because we did build on something solid, and we built a reputation, and when we went through tough times, that solid foundation held us up through tough times, because I made some mistakes and things went wrong, and the strength at that point, the strength of the brand carried us through. I mean, we did. I worked hard on the brand. I'm not saying that you don't have to do that brand stuff.
No,
People
because
need
you
to know
do.
where they are when they go on your website and
Yeah.
relate to it. It was really important. My wife said to me, "When are you going to start designing bikes? Why are you doing? Why are you, what are you drawing these things for? When are you going to start actually designing metal things?" And I thought, and I really wanted to make sure that there was a kind of solid background to the brand, and that it had, the feeling that I wanted, rather than just, people. I didn't want people to get on the website and be confused about where they were, And
Yeah, because I think that there's a purpose with each model. Yeah, not sure I get the order right, but the aspect, resolution, definition, bokeh, it's all the photography related name.
yeah,
And I mean, it's a gross simplification, but would you say that the distinguishing factor is basically tire clearance? So it's
um,
kind of it kind of you can ride them in rougher and rougher terrain.
yeah, yeah. So if it's a difficult one, and also that we're not talking to necessarily bicycle people here. So I think there's a kind of thing that's a parallel with guitars. I'm not actually answering a question here, but I'm kind of going back a little bit. Is that people that they might be interested in bicycles, like a lot of people are interested in bicycles, and maybe friends of mine who know we do bicycles will say, well, it's just a wheel and three triangles. And what else can you do to it? What
Hmm.
else is there to do? It's either straight bars or curvy drop bars, or how can you bring a new bike out? Because when you look at it, that's what it looks like. And with guitars, well, it's only a chunk of wood with a neck and some strings stretched across it. What can you do? How can you have a guitar company? And what's the difference between all those guitars? So it's yeah. So going back to your question, is that yes, basically it's either the frame material. We use titanium, steel, and aluminium for the frame. So it gives a very different ride quality. So the basics of it, it's the frame material, and it's the purpose that bike's intended for. So
Yeah.
if it's going to be a long distance, what we might call an endurance bike for riding a long way over a period of days over variable road surfaces, or variable surfaces, that's one type of bike with a certain size of wheel. And then there might be bikes that are made for fast off-road traveling, and then that means they just need another wheel size and tire size to take you across that terrain fast and comfortably. And then if you start pushing out the other side of that terrain to steeper, deeper, further deserts or something, or you're traveling for 4 or 5 months, then you're going to need something else. So these people we were talking about who are just starting to learn about bicycles, they should just buy a bike. They should buy a bicycle for £600, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And then they'll get on two wheels and they'll start to learn about it and love it. And then they might want to veer off onto some gravel. Then they might want to ride further. And at that point, they'll think, oh, well, that bike was all right, got me on two wheels. But now I'm starting to learn about this whole world, and now I see what these people are doing, and I want to do a bit of that, or I keep falling off, so I need something different here. And I guess it's the same with guitars, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many parallels. I mean, I mean, 6, 7, 8 string guitar is kind of like road bike, gravel bike, mountain bike. They're like different territories, different ranges of uses, if you
Yeah.
will, and the components that make up a guitar or a bike, like the group set, which comes in all these different levels of sophistication and price, obviously, and features,
Yeah.
which I guess a lot of people will define the bike by the group set level.
Yeah.
And
So that's the gears and the brakes and the
yeah,
traction and the things
yeah, and
bolt.
sometimes the pickups in the guitar will be the same thing. I mean, it's what the most obvious part of the like quality or the most apparent thing of the guitar is the pickups. That's what's going to shape the sound the most.
Yeah.
But put those in like a rubbish frame,
Yeah.
it's still a bad result.
Yeah. It's, like with a real good parallel to bicycles because the thing, we don't do carbon fiber frames.
Hmm.
All of our thing is metal. The forks are carbon fiber because it's really the best thing for a fork. But carbon fiber became this thing, and everyone had to get. If you were serious, you had to have a carbon fiber bike. And so carbon fiber bikes were hugely expensive. It was, Formula One technology, space age technology, right? So you had to spend a lot of money on a carbon fiber bike. But then obviously it became the thing. So then loads of people started making carbon fiber bikes. They weren't necessarily made in Italy. They were made in Taiwan. Fine, they're brilliant at making stuff. They were made in China, also brilliant at making stuff. But it doesn't mean that you get your carbon fiber bicycle with a carbon fiber frame. It doesn't mean it's going to ride any better. Not necessarily, not if it's not engineered properly, not if the parts that are joined to it are cheap parts, because you still want the bike to be £1,100, so you have to put cheap parts on it. But the consumer wants a carbon fiber frame. That's certain consumer, not obviously not everyone. It just became a bit of a thing. And then you could get a £600 carbon fiber frame from an unknown factory in China, on Amazon or something. And then unfortunately, it kind of, for the people that are making brilliant carbon fiber frames, because carbon fiber is fantastic material for bicycles, it's really good. But it took the shine off it, I think, maybe for people.
Yeah.
So you're right.
This thing with the frame material is also it's very similar to the tone wood debate in guitar making. Is like, does the wood make a difference in the guitar, or is it just the pickups that shape the sound? And I think anyone who's played more than one guitar made from different materials, they know, it made a difference. They might not be able to quantify it without tons of experience. I think the same thing goes for bikes. I mean, these different materials and different frame designs make a huge difference to the ride quality and how that makes you as a rider perform in a long session, for example. You wouldn't notice it if you rode for 10 minutes, but ride for 10 hours, it's a huge difference. And that's what we also want to reflect with our guitars.
Yeah, because it's interesting that your early thing was comfort. I think like the ergonomic guitar, and for me, I'm not. I love music. My sons both play guitar, and I kind of love the guitar as a thing. I wouldn't necessarily understand it, but for me, I would think, well, what do you mean comfort? You're not riding it, But when you learn that, that your kind of guitar player might play for 16 hours a day or something.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an exaggeration, but I could guess they would if they were obsessing over something, then that's a real thing, isn't it? That you're getting RSI or something if your guitar's wrong and you're sort of doing strange things with it. And it had to be lightweight, That's a parallel with us because people will say, well, all my friends have got these lightweight bikes. I'm going off 7 days with them. I've got my steel Mason. am I going to be in trouble? I'll say, well, I don't think so. I think you'll be fine. The whole idea is that you'll be able to ride further because you're not going to be beaten up at the end of the day. The idea is that these bikes are to go a long way in comfort. I'm not worried that they're a little bit heavier, but the whole comfort thing is so important, and confidence, and just being able to relax a bit on the bike. It'll take you a lot further than some super lightweight bit of tech. So it's really interesting when I started learning about your guitars, that whole comfort thing and the way the neck was shaped and fan frets, which I'd never heard of before, all that kind of stuff. It's really interesting when you start fitting human beings to inanimate objects, and they have to make them work. It's a tricky thing. You don't even get that really with cars, that complicated machine, because you just only have one size car, and everything just, you just clonk and adjust stuff, and that's it. So obviously you have to make people fit to it. Parts of the car has to work for a human, but you don't get that. Like if I change half a degree on the head angle of a frame, you probably feel it. Or if you just adjust the bars a little bit on your ride, and you think, oh God, that's much better. But you just only tweaked it, or the saddle. And it's probably the same with the guitar. That if you just think, oh, every time I do that, it just, correct me if I'm wrong, but
no, it's perfect.
That tiny tweak, because you can feel it with your fingertips. It's tiny, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy. I mean, the adjustments you make to a guitar and the adjustments you make to a bike, it's such small differences or small adjustments that make a huge difference to like the complete experience.
You wouldn't be able to notice it, like the before and after picture, but you can feel it, can't you? You can, because you're on it for a long time, and it makes a difference to the way it works, and you're just so used to holding that thing. If you just do tiny thing, it can really, really change things a lot, which is for you and me a challenge, because if you muck it up, everyone can feel it. And well, I really like the old Strandberg neck, and you've made 600,000 of them or something.
Well, I mean, that's the cool thing with how I started the business is that I was interacting with all these people that were way more experienced than I was as a player, and they could tell me what they were after, and I would try to meet their requirements, and it was like a paid learning journey. And I mean, I still have areas where I have no knowledge. I mean, our guitars ultimately, they'll have to be played in a recording studio in the context of a song, or they'll be live on stage with a band surrounding you. And what works in those situations is radically different from what works in your bedroom.
Yeah, and also you're not going to test it on a playing machine, are you?
No, exactly.
We have to have them. Well, we don't have to. It's not law, but we test all our frames to ISO standard. It's brutal. They basically, you design the frame and then you have to try and get it torn apart, and it's terrifying. They all go through that, so we're not going to sell them otherwise.
Yeah.
But you're not going to put a guitar on a playing bed which twangs it. So it's how you have. It's how it works in the real world, isn't it?
Yeah. And the thing is, I mean, since I mean, I played live, of course, when I was a kid. That's how all this started. But I really don't know from my own knowledge. I have to like have a good ear, not from hearing music, but from hearing what people tell me what works in their context. Because to me, the bedroom experience is like, yeah, this guitar sounds great. These pickups sound great. But then someone will say, nah, that's not going to work in this mix, etc. So I really have to learn how to listen to what people tell me and make sense out of that, and then rely on others to make the right decisions.
Yeah.
In terms of riding and the designing your bikes, are there areas where you have to like really rely on others, or can you kind of figure out all the different aspects of a design.
Yeah, well, it's really similar, because I'll come up with a concept of something for this next bike, something I want to do, and I can fling a bike down a hill, and I'm fairly all right at riding a bike, but I'm no way. I mean, I've never been a racer. I've never been someone that would go and enter, road races or anything like that. So, and I'm not really, the guy that's going to be the huge long distance, ultra distance racer. So, but I understand what's needed to make a bike work. I through experience and just through a knowledge of engineering and from what I've done before, I've kind of got the idea of this thing. If I do this, this, and this, and we use this tubing, and we do this, and we make our own fork and all that kind of stuff, this is going to be the tool to work for this type of riding, if you like. But then, we have our ambassadors, who are those are the guys that are winning the transcontinental race or riding from Canada to Mexico. They have a huge input onto how these things are going to come out in the end, because we make plenty of prototypes and they try them in the real world. And also, one of our riders, Josh Ibbett, who's well known on the kind of ultra endurance racing scene, he will help me come up with ideas. We'll get to the end of the performance envelope of a certain product, like with our first two bikes, and he'll be saying, well, I really want to be able to go across this type of terrain, and I want to be able to load it up a little bit more, and when I get into sand, I can't, I don't want to push it for 150 miles, and we'll work on it together, and it's super important, especially because sometimes it's the really small details. Well, not sometimes, almost always. It's the really small details that mean the most to people, because they go, oh, just put that there, And people say, oh, I've been searching for exactly the right bike for, I don't know, sometimes years. And they say, oh, you've just put this there. You thought of that. It does this. And it's just exactly what I wanted. I couldn't find all these things on one machine from anywhere else. And that's only because we listen to a lot of people and we try things. And it makes a real difference, because those people now who may have bought years ago their bike to go to work at the level where they've refined their art right down, and they want the correct bit of equipment. Sometimes people, that same question about, oh, it's just wheels and a frame. It's like, well, why you can ride a road bike across gravel, and why do you need a gravel bike? And true, you can do it, and that is a true thing. But it's like, you can play tennis with a badminton racket, right? You're not going to be that good. You can do it, but when you get to a certain level, then you want a tennis racket, because you're doing tennis. But then you want a really, really shit hot tennis racket, because you've upped your game. And so it's like that with your thing, and it's like that with our thing. And we love getting those details right, and just releasing it onto the world and seeing what people are going to do with it.
Yeah. And I mean, just tiny things, like on my previous bike, which was the Cannondale that I loved, to like service this and set it up, I'd have to like dig through my entire tool chest. But on the Mason, it's like a single Allen key size for every screw. That was a revelation in itself when I got it.
It's a small thing, but if you're going a long way, and people are, Josh will saw the end of his toothbrush. So instead of the toothbrush being this long, it's that long, so he can pack it, and it's a bit lighter. And that's extreme. But
Yeah.
if you only have to take 1 or 2 Allen keys and you can just fit them in, and you don't have a rattly pack, and it just, and if you're tired and you don't want to go on anymore and you just have to get the tool out and it's only one, it's it's changes stuff, doesn't it? And
Yeah,
it just
yeah, yeah.
things.
And that's a particular area where I have failed. I need to minimize the number of Allen keys needed to adjust the damn thing. So we're like officially overrunning, which I always do by a little bit. But let's just see if there are any kind of questions here from the people. And I saw one. I swear I saw a good question here. Well, let's see. Which model do you recommend as a jack of all trades kind of bike? And I mean, to me, I think that's kind of what we're talking and what Mason is all about is a bike that you can ride anywhere and that is fun in any given situation.
Yeah, well, that is the most important thing. There's this whole image of cycling that was promoted a few years ago of being just you had to suffer. There'd be black and white videos of people that looked literally like they were, coming out of the trenches or something.
Yeah.
So our thing was, you need to be having fun. I don't want to be doing pain and suffering that much. It's part of it, but mainly you need to be enjoying yourself. So jack of all trade things, if you have a jack of all trade, it's not very good at any one particular thing. So it's not always the best. But if there was one bike that you could make do a really wide range of things, it would probably be that this orange one here, and the one that you've got, Ola, which we call the Boca, which you can buy it with various wheel sizes. And so many people buy the bike and they buy 2 sets of wheels all set up, and then one will have, it's still quite a wide tire, but a road tire, so you can go fast on the road, and it'll still go over various surfaces. And then if you want to do you want to go off road, or you want to go touring off road, and you're going to hit some single track and some mountain paths and so on, then you can put your other set of wheels on. I think you do that too, don't you? And so it makes it hugely adaptable. But if there was a downside, the downside would be that because we make we spend a lot of time making our own forks, and you can see this fork is a road fork. The downside would be that you wouldn't have quite the refinement and comfort with the smaller tires, because you can't make it do everything to the highest level. There has to be some compromise somewhere. So that is made for mainly off road. If you want the ultimate comfort on road, you should probably get the road bike. If you're going to be spending 80% of the time on road, so yeah, that's probably the best answer to that question.
Yeah. That's what I find though with the kind of bike that the Boca is that it is fun in all situations. It's good to ride on road. It's good to ride reasonably off the road. Whereas my mountain bike, which I sold a while back, is only fun like on the mountain or in pretty gnarly terrain.
Yeah.
And it was misery getting to that gnarly terrain.
Yeah, and also a modern mountain bike doesn't necessarily travel very well. It's hard to go far on. They've got quite radical. And I think the most enjoyable cycling I've done for many years is getting one of those and just going fast cross country, and then trying to maybe get a little bit on the edge of the comfort zone with it and ride fast off road. And it's really rewarding, because you are, it's fast and you're in touch with the terrain. And maybe a modern mountain bike, it's great when you're good enough to ride at a good enough level. You want to do some drop-offs and jumps and that kind of thing. But if you're not doing that, then maybe it's not the most fun weapon.
Yeah. One last thing that I did want to ask you is like the bike industry is very much a fashion industry, and it's so it's so driven by like what's hot this year,
Yeah,
and to much greater extent, I think, than the guitar industry. Obviously, there's trends, and companies come out with models every year and say this is the new hot thing, but I don't think it at all shapes like what people feel they have to have the same way as it does in biking.
yeah.
I mean, how do you navigate that as a smaller company with like a more limited
Um,
product set?
yeah. Well, you know what? We don't we don't really navigate it, and I think, well, one, we don't have model years. We don't, because it could be because we're small, and because I don't do, you know, this ride driven design thing. Is it's on every bike, and it's quite core to what we do, because we're not, nothing on those bikes is from fashion or aesthetics. I mean, the colours and it looks nice, but none of the design of that bike is stemmed from, oh, we've got to make something new this year. You know, this is going to be, you know, model year 2021's coming. Why haven't we done anything new? It's because we refine them, and we've got version 2s and 2.1s, and we're changing stuff the whole time, and we're introducing new models. But we only do that when we feel it's right, and when we've tested it enough, and when we're happy that it's a meaningful product. We don't, you know, personally, I really don't believe in that model year thing, and it's driven by marketing. And you know, a lot of industries need it, because it's like the car industry, which, you know, once again, do we really need a new car every year? You know,
Hmm.
we need that new number plate. What is really different? I've got a car that's 50 years old. Obviously, that's a bit old. But you know, do we need a new car, just because we're being told we need a new car? And it's a bit the same with bikes. You know, there are little changes every year, and they are better, and new components come out, and it pushes things forward, and it drives things. And I really believe in technology, and we are driven by technology, because when new braking systems come out, or, you know, different gearing, we're like, oh, how can we use that? Wow, that's good. We can really incorporate that and make our thing better. And that's what drives us. Or we invent a new tube, or think of a new way a bike can be used. We're never going to say, okay, these are the 2021 range, and last year's are now 40% off. Because
Yeah.
last year we were telling you they were really good, you know?
Exactly.
And they were really good. And you know, and you know that aero thing, you know, if you go back 10 years, when every bike is getting 4% stiffer and 5% more aero, you know, every year, how can it have done? Because it would be, it doesn't make sense. So we, you know, I'm obviously a little bit passionate about that, but it just, I believe that we should, it's got to be sustainable, and we want to do things that really work, and help people ride in the way they want to ride. And this thing's so hard to do, running a business, that if you're not really believing in what you're, in your product and what you're doing, and you're not doing it for the right reasons, then it's too hard. You know, for me, I have to believe in stuff. I don't want to be trying to con people, because
Mm,
it'd be too hard. You know, it's not,
mm,
doesn't work. And
mhm.
it's a little bit, I don't want to offend the car industry, but it's just a little bit like that, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of what I feel.
Oh no, no. I mean, for sure. It's such an unhealthy proposition to like have to somehow justify why on an annual basis, determined by the calendar, say that what you're doing now is X better than what you did the month before.
Yeah, because it makes it too close to the fashion industry, you know, and the fashion industry is coming for some bad press, because it's so wasteful. Because why are my trousers the wrong shape now? You know, why do I have to throw away? Why do why do clothing companies have to burn their clothing? You know, and the reason they have to do that is because they marketed that you have to buy all this 2021 range. It's you know, I never want to get close to fashion stuff. There's a place for it, you know, but proper product design shouldn't be fashion led, I guess.
Yeah.
Got to be, you know, you've got to have the right color. Maybe styling is hugely important because humans want the. You need to love the thing that you're playing, or when you're riding for 1,000 miles, you've got to love it. You've got to look down and think, I love it. If it hurts your eyes, you kind of don't want it, but it shouldn't be led by modern years and fashion.
Yeah.
It's just not real, is it?
No, 100% true. No, I could spend all evening chatting about all this. I think we should wrap up. But just in closing, is there anything specific like planned in the next 6 months or a year for Mason Cycles, or you along?
Yeah. Well, you know, there's my big list of which probably 2/3 is like, okay, we're not going to do it. but then we're going to be doing 3 new models which we're working on now. You're probably the first to hear that, I think. So and we're always refining what we do, but we're going to be doing some refinements and some new things, and then just driven by what people are wanting to do with bikes and technology as well. We're noticing new little things, and some of them are a bit nichey, but they have real advantages for people, and we can see that if we design that thing, it'll be useful to people, and it'll take them somewhere where they want to be going, in a way they want to be going in that way. So yeah, there's 3 or 4 things we're going to be working on. We're working on now. You know, it won't be. I can't give you a model yet.
I have to ask you one final thing though, which is something that I've also asked a lot of our artists when we've had these chats. It is, what do you need to be creative? How can you create a creative space for yourself, like with everything that's going on? Can you be creative and design stuff with all this chaos going on?
Yeah. Well, you know, it has been chaotic recently, hasn't it? And I think I just went back to recently just keeping things going. There was no creation going on. That kind of stopped. And in normal day-to-day life, as you well know, when you're running a company and you're trying to push this boulder into action at the start, that's hard. And then you're keeping it rolling now, and it kind of it just almost takes everything you've got to do that. And so the creative space starts to get squeezed down. So like when people say, "Oh, can you just do a design?" You know, it's like, well, no, I'm going to have to kind of be in the right place to do that, and I need space. And I think, you know, luckily, riding a bike is great for that, and I'm trying to ride more, because actually starting a bicycle company made me ride a bicycle less, because it was just all consuming. Now I'm riding more, and it gives you the space to think. You know, you need that flow and that freedom, and then you can start to be creative. And I try to make this space where we work a nice creative space to be in, and we were lucky where we are here. And I have to feel I have to feel happy in my environment to be able to be creative. I think it really affects me where I am, and if I'm unhappy where I am, I can't be creative at all. I think that, I'm not sure if that's the answer, but that's kind of something like the answer.
Yeah. Because I mean, I can do wonders in just a few hours in terms of a creative process, but I need like an indefinite time of quiet time, or at least no disaster time leading up to that, and you never know when it's going to happen, and you can't like cut space out to make it happen. But I guess with growing the business the way that we are growing now with Strandberg, we're getting the muscles where we can hire more staff and thereby get out of operational stuff to greater extent, and hopefully devote more time to creative processes, which
Yeah.
I really look forward to.
Yeah, it's getting that support network around yourself, and not forgetting that you know that you do need that space, especially if you're a creative person, because maybe it makes you slightly miserable if you're a creative person. You just can't do it. You can't find the space to be creative, and it's almost at odds with who you are. You know, but you've put yourself in that position, and then you need to kind of put yourself out of it and allow people to support you, because that's your job, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dom, hang right there for a bit. Viewers, thank you for hanging out with us for this long. I've certainly enjoyed this. I hope you did too. And tune in, watch our social media for the next live stream, which should happen probably next week. So with that, thanks a lot. Take care and see you soon.